Welcome to the Neurology Nuts and Bolts podcast, all about constructing your career in neurology. I'm your host, Sara Schaefer from the Yale School of Medicine. Today, as part of the Types of Career series, we will be speaking about taking a gap year between residency and fellowship with Christian Amlang, Movement Disorders Fellow at Columbia, and Paul Sanmartin, ICU EEG Fellow at Yale. Thank you for joining us, Christian and Paul.
Well, hi. Thanks for having us.
All right, so let's start with you, Paul. When did you decide to take a gap year between residency and fellowship, and why did you make that decision?
Oh, well, I was in a way, Sarah was forced to do it because I'm under a visa and I need to work for an X amount of years. And right after I finished neurology, I needed to renew my visa, but the only way I could do it is by working. So I took initially what I thought it was going to be a couple of years and then ended up being 3 years. And that's how it happened. So before joining neurology, I knew that such thing will happen.
And that's because you had done residency, a second residency in internal medicine previously. So you had reached the extent of your training that was allowed under your visa. Is that correct?
That's correct. I did a full medicine residency before neurology. So normally a visa will allow you to study for 6 years. And that's the reason why I had to switch to work.
And what about you, Christian? When did you decide to take a year off and why did you make that decision?
Yeah, so at some point during residency, I made that decision. I just felt like the residency was pretty hard and that I wanted to have some time in between training to get some more experience, have some more time for my family. And then I think during my third year of residency, I made the decision that I would like to spend a year as a neurohospitalist. Actually, with reduced time, I only had like 50% contract, so I worked part-time during that 1 year.
All right, so you're going into my next question, so why don't you finish answering that one, which is, what did you end up doing during that year off?
During that year, I worked as a neurohospitalist at Yale, which was great, actually. I trained at Yale, so it was like a small community hospital. I was working for 1 week, then I was 1 week off. And then the second half of the year, I was actually completely off. I just moonlighted, worked in clinic with some of our movement disorders attendings at Yale. It was a very great time because I had a lot of opportunities to design my schedule the way I wanted it and to explore things, specialties, also like non-medical stuff that I didn't have time for during residency. And also it was great to have that opportunity to work as a neurohospitalist. I felt like when I started my first week, I remember it was like I realized, there's so much I don't know. And there's so much more that I have to learn. And the great part about doing it at a hospital that was affiliated with my residency or the institution where I did residency was that it was very easy for me to stay in touch with my old attendings and with you too. And whenever I had questions, whenever I had concerns, I was able to reach out to get input. So in a way, I was paid as an attending, but I was kind of a fellow. I would say like a neurohospitalist fellow. So I think there was something that I didn't actually anticipate, but it was a tremendous learning opportunity that still helps me now when doing movement disorders.
Well, I have to say that experience of relying on your old colleagues to help you as a new attending doesn't matter if you're right out of residency or if you've done a fellowship. I definitely had the same experience and was texting a lot of people and calling a lot of people my first few months as an attending. So yep, it sounds pretty familiar. What did you end up doing, Paul?
So I went to work as a neurohospitalist, same as Christian. I worked there for 3 years. I was in Hartford Hospital, which was affiliated to UConn. I was part of the residency program as well, and I love the time over there. I mean, and I had the same experience as Christian. I remember the first couple of the weeks were tough, and I remember reaching to all my mentors and attendings at Yale because you always have questions. And one of the great things about working is that sometimes you don't know what you sometimes you don't know what you know, and also you don't know what you don't know sometimes. It's a very interesting experience. So I was lucky enough that I kept good relationships with who were my attendings at the Yale, and I was calling them frequently, I would say, and learning not only from them, but also from the new residents, from the new attendings that I met at the new institution. So that's what I did. And I had the same schedule as Christian, 7 days on, 7 days off. You never get tired with that schedule. I enjoyed it.
It sounds like you both just wanted a little bit time to be human as well, which is something that some people in medicine maybe need to learn that lesson.
It doesn't hurt to be a normal person sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, the thing is, if you think about it, in theory, you finish residency on June 30th, and then you start fellowship on July 1st. There's not a lot of space in between to explore, enjoy life. And sure, like for some people, fellowship can be more relaxed or can be less stressful than residency, but it doesn't have to be. Like I think in many ways, it's like a very decisive step in your medical career. So I think it's nice to have just a moment to breathe and really just like do things that you hadn't been able to do before. For example, I love traveling, so I spend a lot of time traveling too. Whenever I could, I'm German. I was able to go back to Germany to spend a month with my family, which you couldn't do if you do residency or fellowship.
And when you got back into the training circuit, and when you were off interviewing for fellowships, I think some people might wonder if taking these gap years could be a black mark on their application, if that would raise some eyebrows from fellowship directors. What were both of your experiences with that?
I have to say it was not so, because I'm doing movement disorders. I interviewed right at the end of P2I4 at the end, because it's very late in the for neurology fellowships. And I didn't have actually any comments whatsoever. Whenever I said, I would like to stay for a year as a neurohospitalist, no one had any concerns or was giving me any hard time asking critical questions. I actually, like a lot of people, encouraged me to do so. And honestly, at the end, I understood why. It's not. I wouldn't say it's a gap or like a loss. It's part of your training. I can say that I really solidified my general neurology knowledge a lot. It's so much different when you see patients as an attending compared to as a trainee, and I think that really forces you to sharpen your knowledge, to be really on top of what you do, to double check every decision that you make, and I think it just made me a better neurologist. And I suspect maybe that's why I didn't get any questions about it, to be honest with you.
And Paul, what was your experience?
Well, when I applied, my experience was great. I mean, when I was applying for fellowship, I only applied to one place, to be honest. I went back to where I trained, and no, they were very, very supportive. And then when I started training, Sara, like Christian, I completely agree with what Christian said. It's a difference to see a patient as a trainee than to see a patient as an attending. As an attending, you're able to see the whole picture. Whereas as a trainee, and we've all went through this, you have to be focusing on things like documentation, the discharge summary, things that probably are not pure medicine. But when you're an attending, you're able to do so. So coming back, I could see the difference. Even the people with whom I had worked a few years ago, they saw the difference. So on my applying process, I never thought that people were concerned about my training or concerned about this gap that, agreeing with Christian, it's not a gap. I mean, it's basically invaluable time of learning and teaching neurology. So I don't consider it as a gap.
I imagine not just learning neurology, but becoming a more confident and more naturally independent practitioner, which, as a fellow, I'm sure would be looked at as a benefit.
Indeed, yes. Oh, definitely. Yes, you're independent. I mean, it's something unique. It's something that you will experience only once you step out at either residency or fellowship. It's great.
I think there are also two other aspects. One is that no matter what you do, even if you have if you're super subspecialized, you only see movement disorders, Parkinson's in my case, the patient is, as a human being, is complex, has like different conditions, and is going to have general neurologic questions too, or problems. So or just like medical issues. And of course, if it's more complex, you have to, it's an expert consultation and refer the patient. But if it's simple, I think it's also beneficial for the patient and in a way powerful for you too, to be able to address like at least minor issues. So the patient doesn't have to see like 10 different specialists. The other aspect is I think it's hard to find after fellowship a position in academic. Let's say you do a certain fellowship. I think it's very hard to find a position where you only see patients of that subspecialty. In many cases, I believe you see at least a portion of general neurology patients, or you spend some time in the inpatient service, regardless of your specialty. I honestly think that at that point, when you're finishing up fellowship and you're applying for a faculty position, that experience of having worked as a neurohospitalist is actually a bit advantageous. It might be beneficial for your application, because that's very valuable experience that comes in handy when you start working as an attending, regardless of like your position.
I could absolutely see that. I've Dix Hall piked and Epleyed people in my Parkinson's clinic, and, given triptans for headaches and diagnosed neuromuscular conditions and all kinds of things. So I could absolutely see that. Now, one thing that I did want to ask you guys about is that obviously, you go from a residency salary to a attending salary, and often that's double or more what you might be making in residency, and then back to a fellowship trainee salary. How did you sort of approach that roller coaster financially? Paul?
Well, in my case, Sara, I live on my own. I'm single. I really didn't have any problems adapting to the new salary, either to go to have the salary attending or coming back to have the fellow attending. So I didn't have any issues. But I know when I remember telling people that I was going to do this, that was the first question: how are you going to deal with this? But I really have no issues at all.
What about you, Christian?
So in my case, it's a little bit special because, as I said, I worked part-time. I technically only worked for half a year. Then the other half of the year I did, whatever I wanted to do. So the benefit of that was that I had half of the attending salary, which was exactly the salary that I had as a resident and later as a fellow. So it was like there was no difference whatsoever, which was, which I liked. So I had the same salary. I worked much less. And we could just enjoy life and do a lot of interesting stuff in medicine too. Also, like in preparation of my fellowship that I couldn't have done otherwise. Yeah. So in terms of, and then I was actually, the nice part was I was able to moonlight as an attending, which is much better than moonlighting as a resident. But overall, my salary was like more or less the same, I would say.
And as you guys have gone out into the world, have you talked to other people who have done this? And did they have different reasons than you? I could imagine some people might have family planning type reasons or reasons related to a spouse's job. And do you have any other insights from other people you've spoken to?
It's interesting that you say it. I think Paul is the only one that I know that I can think of right now that has done that. Otherwise, most people I know, finished residency and went straight to fellowship, which makes sense. So I don't. Paul, do you know anyone else?
I know. So I did medicine first and neurology, and I know a lot of especially the medicine people who, for several reasons, visa issues, research, or family planning, like you mentioned, Sara, they've been working for years. I actually have one of my best friends. He's the attending of somebody who was our co-resident in medicine. So she spent 6 years working, and then she joined a pulmonary critical care program in New Jersey. And actually, my friend, who is actually, we were all co-residents, is her attending. So I know a lot of, at least 5 or 6 people, and their experience, interestingly, is always very good. And they all say the same thing, that after working for some time, we develop that experience. And sometimes after residency, you're not ready. You're not really ready you're not sure what to do next. And actually those years of working and time off, like Christian said, really guides you in a way to a final specialty. So all of those people that I know, they're happy with their final decision.
Great. So what advice would you have for anybody who might be listening and considering this pathway for themselves? Paul, you want to start?
Sure. Do it. I mean, it's always good to have a break. Being an attending not only carries more responsibilities, but also you have more time for yourself, for your family. And medicine is a tough world, and it takes years for training. And don't be disencouraged by anything. I mean, during that time, you will learn a lot. You'll be able to practice independently. And the first few weeks are going to be interesting, but you will always have your mentors, people who trained you at your different institutions who will back you up. I think if you do it, you will not regret it. And as I always say, this is not a gap. I mean, it's a time of knowledge. It's an invaluable time that you can actually use.
A time of growth.
Correct. In many, not only in neurology as a person, but I do photography. And my time off, I travel the world taking pictures. And I have 7 days that I have to come back, be a neurologist again, and then travel again. So it is those 3 years were among the best 3 years of my life.
Christian?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Paul. I think I would encourage anyone or everyone to consider it as an option. I wouldn't see it as a gap year. I think it's an extension of your training in a way. It can help you make you a better clinician and maybe like a more holistic human being, because you have some more time, maybe hopefully, to focus on other aspects of life and of yourself. That's giving you more, just a bit more of knowledge and wisdom in a way, maybe for the next steps and for the future. Yeah, I would encourage everyone to really think about it.
Well, you guys have certainly made me want to go back in time and do a gap year or two. Oh, well, it's too late now. Well, thank you both for sharing your wisdom, your gained knowledge and wisdom with me and our listeners. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks so much for having us, Sara.
Neurology Nuts and Bolts podcast was created and produced by myself, Sara Schaefer. This podcast is not recorded as an official podcast of any institution or organization. The podcast is unfunded. Opinions are those of the individual participants. Music by Audrey Nath, artwork by Shivani Ghoshal. Want more content like this? Be sure to subscribe to the Neurology Nuts and Bolts podcast wherever you get your podcasts to hear more about constructing your career in neurology. Follow us on Twitter at NeuroBolts and on Facebook at Neurology Nuts and Bolts to stay up to date on new content and give us feedback on what you want to hear. And tell your friends. Thanks for joining us.